Good evening and a very warm welcome to the Year 12 welcome evening. Can I start by apologising for moving this event online? We had hoped to have you in the hall this evening, but literally over the course of the last 12 hours, we've had a number of girls test positive for COVID, I think from festivals and various events that they have been to. And I think at this point in time, the girls are doing their lateral flow test ready to come back into school. And although they're asymptomatic, they weren't aware that they had got COVID. So as a consequence of that, and just to ensure the safety of everybody, we have moved this event online so that we don't have you all in the hall this evening, but we're very much looking forward to seeing the girls tomorrow. Just ahead of them coming back, and not to dwell on COVID for too long in this discussion, could I please ask that you continue to encourage the girls to do 2 lateral flow tests a week, so 1 every 3 days. We're not in a position now where we have to isolate the girls if they are part of a bubble, because we have moved away from bubbles. But it does mean that the girls do have to test at least twice a week. And if they are positive, then they do have to isolate. But we're not going to be in a position where we are tracking and tracing and isolating lots of girls. But please make sure that they do a lateral flow ahead of coming back tomorrow. On that, we are delighted that when the girls do come back into school tomorrow, they can move around the school freely, they can go to their lessons and move around the classrooms, move around the school, and all co-curricular activities will come back online. And we're looking forward to them having those co-curricular opportunities again, and the girls to take part in sports, in drama and music, and indeed to be able to welcome you back to the events that we would normally have in school. So it very much is a return to normal, and I appreciate this event is back online, but hopefully this will be the only one. So that's COVID to one side, hopefully, and although we'll be flexible over the course of the next few weeks, I am hoping that it won't have a huge impact on what is happening in school. Can I just also start by saying a huge congratulations to the girls in Year 12. They achieved the most amazing GCSE results. We had 93% of the girls received grades between 9 to 7, with 56% of all grades being graded at 9, which is absolutely phenomenal and a real testament to the hard work that the girls put in, particularly in those last few weeks when they were doing many assessments. And I would argue they had to work harder than most of the cohorts to get those results, because they were literally doing assessment after assessment. And that was at the end of a very difficult year, a very difficult 18 months when they were unsure as to the exams that they were going to be taking. So a huge congratulations to the girls coming back into Year 12. And we have 8% of the cohort coming back in, which again is phenomenal. And I'm delighted that we've got so many of our girls coming back into the sixth form. They are joining a hugely successful sixth form team, and you may well have seen from the letter I sent out today, the A-level results. We had 89% of all grades were A star to A, which again is absolutely phenomenal and testament to the superb learning and teaching and pastoral care that happens in the sixth form, on top of the hard work that the girls have put in. And all of the girls got their first choice universities, with 90% of them going to Russell Group universities. And the other 10% were going on to top art schools, top drama schools, and onto courses of their choice. So your daughter is joining a very successful sixth form. And I think, and you will know, that the balance between the academic and the pastoral care in the sixth form is absolutely phenomenal. And I know that Mr. Owen and Mr. Johnson are going to talk a little bit about that this evening. On top of that, I just wanted to talk to you just for a moment about some of those things that we do outside of the academics. And I was talking over the summer to a recruitment consultant who worked for KPMG and for Price Waterhouse, and they were saying that the graduates that they're now taking on, what they're looking for isn't necessarily a string of amazing A-levels and a first at university, but they're looking for that skill set where the girls have got grit and determination and sustainability, and they're looking for those pupils who can demonstrate that. So one of the areas that we've been looking at, as you will know, through the curriculum that we follow, are those opportunities for the girls to develop those skills of the 21st century, developing that grit and that perseverance and that resilience. And again, Mr. Owen and Mr. Johnson will talk a little bit about that broader curriculum in this evening. Over the course of the last couple of days and tomorrow, we've been looking at the values at Surbiton High School and what we value as a school. And I think some of those values have certainly changed over the course of the last 18 months. And we wanted to have a reset with staff and with pupils about those particular values. And what's come through with the teaching staff over the last few days are the things that we value in our pupils in our school are things like respect, integrity, honesty. And when we do the same piece of work with the girls, we're hoping that what they say reflects some of the things that the teachers say, but we are mindful that they are a different generation. So we're looking forward to working with the girls on what they value and what they see Surbiton High School values should be. But just on that, what did stand out more than anything for me was that respect came through first and foremost amongst the staff as something that we hugely value in the school. And I hope those of you who are new to the school will see that over the course of the next few months. But those of you who've been in the school for a long period of time know that we very much respect the girls, we respect the families that join the school, and the feeling is mutual between the families in the school. Communication is essential at Surbiton High School, and we work very hard to ensure that we work with our parent body and the pupils, and we have a triangulated approach to ensure that we have a no surprises culture and that our conversations are open and honest. So to that end, could I ask that over the course of the next 2 years, as your daughter joins the sixth form, that the conversations that your daughter has with you, that you have with the tutor, that you have with the sixth form team are open and honest and timely, so that there will be no surprises going forward. We very much have an open door policy, and we certainly do from this September again. So I'm looking forward to seeing you in school over the course of the next few weeks and months. And I'm delighted that your daughter's coming back into the sixth form. As I say, it's a hugely successful sixth form. And I'm now going to hand over to Mr. Owen, who's going to talk a little bit about what to expect over the next couple of days.
And in fact, before I go, Mrs. Glover, I've got a couple of COVID-related questions that I think it would be good if you could answer them, so then we'd have absolute clarity on them. So yeah. One question is, if a student is vaccinated, I know we don't want the whole evening to be about COVID, but I think it's a really helpful question to do. If a student is vaccinated and a close contact test positive, do they have to isolate? No, there is no isolation at all for close contacts. The only people that have to isolate are the people who are COVID positive. Nobody else has to isolate at all. They are expected to do a lateral flow test or indeed a PCR test if they've been identified as a close contact, but there is absolutely no need for anybody to isolate unless they test COVID positive themselves. And then another question was, we've asked if the girls can do lateral flows before they come in tomorrow, but lateral flows are available in school. That's right. So from tomorrow morning, if you would prefer your daughter to do an in-school lateral flow test, Mr. Close and his team will be available from 8 o'clock downstairs in the gym in the sixth form centre. So if you prefer to do it in school, that's absolutely fine. I do appreciate some of you might have run out of the lateral flow tests over the summer, but you can collect a box when you come into school tomorrow, or you can be tested in school tomorrow. Two more to go. One is, in light of recent events and rising community levels of COVID, what additional mitigation will be put in place to limit the transmission of COVID-19 over the coming weeks? Yeah, so we're following the guidelines from the Department of Education and Public Health and Kingston Borough, and they have suggested the only guidelines that we keep in place for the next few weeks are the continuation of hand washing and hygiene, which we'll remind the girls about tomorrow. The lateral flow testing twice a week for those pupils who are in the senior school, and the continued ventilation of the buildings and facilities. The girls will have to wear masks if they take public transport to school, or indeed they're on a school bus going to Hinchley Wood. But those are the only 4 measures that we are required to put in place at this point in time, which are similar to the measures that we were using at the end of the summer term. We do have a risk assessment, so if we need to enhance our procedures, if we get more positive COVID cases, our risk assessment is in place, and that's online if you want to read through that. And if we get 5 cases in a particular year group or a cohort that have been working together, we will then get further guidance from Public Health England on what to do next. So at the moment we are following all the guidelines. We have things in place to ensure the safety of every child in the school. If your daughter wants to wear a mask, they can do, and some of the staff are choosing to wear masks, but they don't have to.
But everything is on the school website if you want to read our risk assessment and the guidelines that we're currently following. But we do have a contingency plan if we need to move to higher levels of control.
And I promised one last question, but I've got two, but I think we can wrap them up together in one question and get away with it. So one of the parents has asked, my daughter went to Reading, she's had a slight temperature and flu-like symptoms most of the week. Lateral flow test was negative and they've had a PCR, but it's been messed up. We're waiting for the result of a second PCR and probably won't come in tomorrow. Now, in previous years, that would have been Reading Festival flu, probably, but in this day and age, we can't rely on that. So it would be a case, I assume, of waiting for a PCR test, ideally not to come in if there's any risk. Is that correct?
Yes. If you're in any doubt and they are showing any signs of COVID, such as a high temperature or continuous cough, then I would suggest you wait until the outcome of the PCR test. Normally, if you are COVID positive, it will appear on the lateral flow test, but sometimes it doesn't. But if you're in any doubt, I would just wait that 24-hour period until you've done a PCR, just to make sure you're not putting anybody else at risk.
And any result that's positive reported to the school via the...
Yeah, by the principal's office. In the past, we would do a track and trace ourselves, but actually the schools have been asked not to do that now. The NHS are going to be doing the track and tracing. So they will track and trace anybody who is a close contact and ask those close contacts to do a lateral flow and or a PCR. But as I say, you don't need to isolate. The girls can still come into school. Only those who are COVID positive need to stay at home. And lessons will be on Teams for those who are COVID positive.
Okay, so we'll put COVID back in its box now and we'll move on. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Well, good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us online. It is a great shame that we can't meet in person, but I know over the next couple of years that we will meet a lot in person. And if you do at any stage want to have a conversation with any of the sixth form team, please do contact us and I'll show you how to do that later. And we'll be very happy to be in contact at any stage with you. Can I have the next slide, please? I just want to echo Mrs. Glover's comments about the results of for the GCSEs. But actually, on top of that, I want to talk about the Year 11s last year. I had a Year 11 class, big up my biology class from Year 11. They were just fantastic. And the Year 11s that we encountered throughout the whole of last year, we couldn't have asked more of them during difficult times, and they couldn't have given more of themselves. They were absolutely superb. And I'm really excited about them joining the sixth form. I think they now need to have that time of normality as much as we can give them, and they should also be able to celebrate their results and feel incredibly confident about the next 2 years and the courses that they've chosen. So I do really want to congratulate them. I'll congratulate them in person tomorrow when I get a chance to do that. But I have to say, I don't think I've ever been quite as impressed by a Year 11 group. What they had to go through and what they were able to achieve during that was incredibly special, and they should be very, very proud of themselves as individuals and as a year group for doing that. So well done, everybody. Can I have the next slide, please? Now, you're also joining our sixth form tomorrow, and we've had a number of very successful years of sixth form. We have a very strong sixth form based around excellent teaching, excellent student engagement, excellent sort of careers guidance as well, and that has led to some fantastic results. Now, I'm always a little bit careful about some of the data that comes out from schools. Yes, we got 90% of students into Russell Group universities, and that is fantastic. But that also doesn't shout about the girls who got into top art schools in the world, who went on to go and do top courses at non-Russell Group universities, and there are many of those as well. So 90% of Russell Group is just a sort of marker, an indicator of level, to be honest, but the other 10% who didn't go have actually achieved incredible things as well, with students going off to the US. We had offers from Dutch universities as well last year, and what was most important was whilst 100% of students entered their first choice university last year, those first choices for many of them were their aspirational choices as well. Probably for half of that year group, they're actually into their aspirational universities, and that's fantastic. We could get 100% into first choice university by lowering expectations, and we're not going to do that. We want the girls to realise what they can achieve and to work towards those goals and to aim high, because I have to be honest, I'm speaking a lot to university and higher education colleges, and of course now with apprenticeships coming in as well. Surbiton High students are the types of students that those organisations are wanted to take in with open arms. Can I have the next slide, please? Now, let me just take you through a little bit of the structure of the sixth form, just to explain that to you. We are very much a tutor first sixth form. You will get to know your daughter's tutor. Your daughter will get to know their tutor very well. and it is very much tutor first, and that makes it easier. There's only one of me and there's only one of Mr. Johnston, but there are many tutors, so please think tutor first. But my role is a strategic overview of the sixth form. My job is incredibly varied. I do lots of things during the day, but I am always available if needed. So please do feel free to contact me if you feel it needs to be seen at my sort of level, if that's the right term. I don't really like that idea of a hierarchy particularly, but if you need to resolve something, then please do contact me. But normally the tutor will be able to do that for you. Mr. Johnston is the Assistant Director of Sixth Form, so he looks after sixth form if I'm not present, if I'm out on some sort of event or training, and he also has strategic overview of a number of areas within the sixth form as well, and he's also head of year 12. Mrs. Sharp, who many of you know, who is our exams officer as well, is head of year 13. And then we have, now I'm just going to check my notes because Mr. McDermott has given me something to say here. Award-winning careers department. He always wants me to say that because he won an award last year, some sort of national award for careers, which was a fantastic achievement. He is our director of careers. He's incredibly knowledgeable, has huge numbers of contacts, and I would certainly suggest that you quickly contact him and talk about what pathways your daughters may want to go on to, what they're interested in, what needs to be done to get onto that pathway, not to leave that too late, and certainly be proactive. Now, the careers department is based up in the sixth form study area, and it's intentionally there so any student can go to the careers department at any stage. It's literally 10 steps into careers, and we have 3 members of staff in there. And then we have our linchpin really in the sixth form, who's Miss Adele, who's our sixth form PA. And if I can have the next slide, please. So Miss Adele looks after the direct contact into the sixth form. So if you want to book a meeting with any of the sixth form team, thank you, Miss Adele is the person to contact. She's also the person you contact on the day. Rather than going to the main school switchboard, it's much easier to contact the school about any absences that are happening that day. If that can happen by 9 o'clock, that gives us time to update the registers, and also any future requests for absence can go to Miss Adele as well, and she will field those answers for you. Equally, if you go, I don't know who to talk to, there's too many people in the sixth form, ask Miss Adele and she will triage that and make sure that any communication to the school goes to the right person. So just think, who do I need to contact? Miss Adele, and she will give you the right person to speak to. Okay, next slide, please. Now, the great thing for your daughters over the next couple of weeks is that they're probably slightly worried and nervous today. They get told about step up from GCSE to A level and all of these sorts of comments that get thrown around. We are going to take your daughters gently over the next month and get them used to the slight change from GCSE to A level. There are some aspects of A level that are much better and easier, I think, than GCSE, and there are some that are a little bit more challenging. One of the great things about A level is that your daughters have chosen subjects they want to do, and they're going to be dealing with a smaller number of staff on a daily basis, and it means they actually have fewer balls in the air to juggle. I think GCSE in 9, 10, 11 subjects can be quite hard to juggle. So that narrowing down will make life a lot easier for them. And we will be gentle. We're not going to go in and shock the girls and worry them. There's no need to do that. It's a 2-year course. It's not very helpful to do that at all. And we've got plenty of time to build up that speed. But every lesson is a foundation for the next. So it's really important that from Monday when we start teaching that your daughters are on it and they keep going. There's very little time to catch up if you fall behind. It's much better, a little bit like a 1500 meters race, to be towards the front of that group and keeping up at that pace and trying to catch up at the end. So it's really important to try and build those foundations in every single lesson that's attended and to be switched on and ready to go. Can I have the next slide, please? The other slight difference, obviously, from GCSE to A level is that you are narrowing down the group of people that you're competing with at the end of the course. So from something like GCSE Maths, where you've got 750,000 people taking that course every year, there will be 90,000 people taking that course, and 25% of them will get an A or an A star. So it is really important if the next couple of weeks your daughter starts to say, I don't think, this is not particularly about maths, but any subject, I'm not happy on this choice and I wish I'd made a different option choice, is to contact us quickly and we can look at timetables. If there are any concerns, and I know it's been more difficult probably with option choices than it has been in previous years, then just let us know and we will certainly help with that. Can I have the next slide, please? So one of the things you'll hear us say quite often, it really is a marathon, not a sprint A-levels. It's about working every day and not leaving things to the end. And that has to be the mindset. Use that time effectively between lessons that the girls have, and that will help your daughters stay on top of things. And I'm going to just drop this into the conversation. If we can have the next slide. I sat in a lecture a few years ago with a Harvard admissions tutor. Come the next slide, next part, and they came up with a brilliant phrase. They said, it's not our job to give you an education, it's your job to get one. Can you just bring, I didn't realize there were bullet points on there, which I thought was quite interesting considering they charged the thick end of $50,000 for a year at Harvard. But actually underneath that is a very, very important thing. We absolutely have the responsibility to support your daughters and help and guide them and enthuse them and provide excellent lessons. But at the end of the day, they have to be on it and interested and engaged and fill the gaps in as they go along. And so it's really important that your daughters are ready on Monday to have that enthusiasm for school again and to be working through their subjects and enjoying them, and also asking for help if they need them. OK, can I have the next slide, please? So we have got a handbook that will come out to you in the next week or so, which will have the following information in it. Normally the following information is shared by the tutors in the second half of this meeting, but I've taken it on because obviously they're not available. But if you need to refer back to any information, can I ask that you check the handbook first? Most of it will be in there. So next slide, please, John. So the sixth form centres open every day from 8 AM till 5:30. If your daughter needs to come in a little bit early, that's absolutely fine. There's normally staff around. Mr. Johnson and I are sadly at our desks by about 7:30 in the morning, which I always mention when people mention my long holidays. But we're normally in school pretty early, and if the girls are in a little bit early, it's absolutely fine. And then the sixth form centre shuts at 5:30. It doesn't physically locked, but there are no staff that we guarantee because the academic mentors are available at 5:30 in the evening, and so there's staff around. On a Friday, that's 3:40. We have a common room, which is to be used outside of any taught lessons or private study periods, and for the students to use that, and the cafe will be open. We asked for a £10 contribution to the Common Room Fund. That's not something we suggested. It came through the head girl team about 4 or 5 years ago, and that money sits in an account for the girls to use. So if they suddenly want to have a day of free cake from Ralph's, we pay for that out of that money. It's not used for any facilities or anything like that at all, or any of the general day-to-day running of the Common Room. Any of that money that's left at the end then goes to the year 13, half of it to year 13 for the prom, and they get that money back at the end. So it's not a so you'll see £10 on the bill, but it's not there as a money making sort of gambit by us. It's there for the girls to use as they want to. The fitness suite is also open every day, and the students are very welcome to use that as well. Can I have the next slide, please? OK, so form groups. I've already been asked a question about this. Sixth form is completely different to year 11, and I've said this many times through the meetings that we've had through options, etc. The girls will spend 4%, let us think in for a second, 4% of their week in the form groups. That is it. 96% of their time will not be spent in form groups, but the form groups are really important because the tutors will be doing UCAS references and supporting the girls. So we have put the form groups together with tutors that know the subject areas your daughters will be studying or have some understanding of that, which helps with UCAS referencing. It helps with supporting the students. They can talk the talk when it comes to subjects. So it's only 4%. So please don't worry too much about the form groups tomorrow. And even within the 25 minutes of registration in the morning, sometimes registration might be 5 or 10 minutes and the girls will pop next door into the other form groups. It's completely different to year 11. And I know that causes anxiety sometimes for some of the year 11s, but it really isn't an issue. That the girls just mix as and where they want to in the common room. They can mix in private study when they sit there as well. So please don't let form groups or anything like that get in the way. They are based around the timetable, so they can't just be moved. They are actually timetabled against the subjects, and it's a very complex piece of timetabling. So the form groups are a very different issue to they are in year 11, and students can mix completely freely outside of that time. So that's form groups for you. Next slide, please, John. There's going to be games on a Wednesday afternoon, and an email and a letter has come out, I think, to you. It's come out with a link so the students can choose their games options, and there are lots and lots of games options that they can choose. So just make sure they sign up for that to get the games options that they want. OK, next slide, please. I'm going to stop in a second and answer some questions. So this is what a standard sixth form timetable would look like. So a timetable would have in it the subject lessons that I ran out of PowerPoint ability at one stage. I was trying to make this all flash up and light up, and then I just gave up and color coded it. I ran out of talent. But if you have a look on here, you'll see the subjects that the girls do. So you have lessons, and then in purple are the private studies. Now these are spent in the private study area, and the girls have to go in there. They are registered, and they will work in the private study during that time. Lovely big desks, air-conditioned space. It's a great place to work, and that's to get that routine of using that time in between lessons. They'll also have their games, which is in green, and they also have a tutor period once a week with their tutors, and they'll normally have one free period, which is completely free, and they don't have to go to the study area during that time. In the summer term, we remove the private studies, and they all become free, and they'll become free into year 13 as well. But in year 12, we're getting the students used to that idea of managing their time, and that's what a timetable will look like. Okay, next slide, please. So the daily routine is we register at 8:25, so it's very important that your daughters are in school at 8:25. I did last year watch a parent drop their daughter off at 8:35 outside in a car. Okay, we can't have that. They need to be in school at 8:25. It's only fair on the students that are on time that everybody is on time, so it's very, very important. We send out an absence text message at 10:15. So if there is any absence that you know of, it's important that you let us know so that we can prevent that text message coming out. If you get a text message that you don't expect and you think there's been a mistake made by the school, and mistakes do happen, we try to avoid it all the time because registration is incredibly important. Please just phone Mr. Dell and just clear that up with us just in case. It could be, and we have had it, where a student has left home and decided to not come into school. And that's the reason for that text message. And I'd much rather an oversensitive, overprotective system than one that doesn't send you a message when required. So if you do get a message you're thinking this is a bit strange, please just phone in and we'll check that for you. School ends at 3:55 on a normal day and 3:40 on a Friday. Okay, I'm just going to answer some of the questions here. The list says info would be shared on the day, but we haven't received anything. I'm not sure what that is. Our daughter is interested in a career in dentistry. What additional careers provision is made for students interested in medical dentistry and veterinary science? Okay, I will talk to I will send out a message to all of those students in the next couple of weeks. We'll be having a lunchtime session. I look after those students. Bearing in mind, we've got 100% of all students who applied into those courses this year. We have a good program in place. I will meet up with them for that. Let's mention track and trace. Is it the NHS track and trace app? Okay, we're going back into the COVID wormhole here, but I'll dip my toes in and then run out pretty quickly. NHS track and trace. I think if any of you work for the NHS, I'll just call it track and trace because it's probably a bit fairer. They are taking over all track and trace from school, so we don't have to do any tracking and tracing. The student who tests positive will be contacted by track and trace. We don't tell track and trace because of GDPR. The parent will do that, and then they'll be asked for who to contact, and it's done from outside the school. We'll see how long that lasts. If it becomes a bit overwhelmed, we may well take back on track and trace, but the NHS track and trace are doing that. Will there be online access to lessons when girls are isolating? If students are isolating because of a positive COVID test, bearing in mind that nobody has to isolate from close contact anymore, we will provide online lessons for those, but not for other reasons. Mr. Johnson's on the line here. Hybrid teaching is extremely difficult. Online teaching is relatively straightforward. Classroom teaching is relatively straightforward. Hybrid teaching is extremely difficult and clunky, and it's very, very difficult for the class that you're teaching to then have attention to an iPad, etc. So we want the girls in school if they can get in. Obviously, if they're out with COVID, we will hybrid teach during that time, but you have to rewrite your lessons plans and look at the activities you're doing to do it. But certainly for students out for a COVID positive test, we will hybrid teach, but we need to keep that for a minimum because it will affect the progress of all students if we do that. So certainly the plan will be we'll do it for those periods of isolation, but we won't do it for other reasons, just for COVID related reasons. Could you let us know how to register, share COVID test results? We're doing the test at home tonight. That's an email to the school principal to let them know, and they will guide you from there. There's an email that will come out with that guidance. Okay, let's just move on, John. We'll get a bit of pace. I've got a couple more questions. I'll answer those later. Right, okay, so a couple of bits and pieces of good habits, and I'll hand over to Ms. Johnson. First of all, make sure that your daughters are in really good habits. Have a goal, and that goal is something that helps them through sixth form. I feel that students that don't have goals find life quite difficult. So if your daughter's a little bit lost and they say, I don't know what I want to do, I've got no idea, contact the careers department. They're very happy to have a meeting with you present as well, and certainly do that. Ask your daughters to regularly check their emails. Satchel 1, stay on top of communication as well. Plan work and stick to it is very, very important. The use of study periods is key. A student who says, I'll do this tonight, probably won't do it tonight, so use the study periods as you can. And obviously the regular review of coursework and classwork is different at A-level than GCSE. And one of my key messages tonight is to remove chaos from school. Make sure bags are packed the night before, that students have a full set of stationery, that they have their fob, they have everything they need for school, so that chaos goes, that organisation. I battle with my 10-year-old son to get his bag packed every night, but it sits by the front door so they know in the morning he's got everything he needs. It's not easy, I appreciate, but try to get your daughters to remove any chaos from schooling. High academic standards from day one, and certainly if there are any bumps in the road, shout early, definitely shout early and ask for help, and that will be important. Okay, John, next slide, please. I'm getting there. Okay, so this is one of the most important books I think I've read in the last couple of years, called Why We Sleep. I said to my son the other day, come on, you need to go to bed, and he went, no, sleep is for the weak. And he's 10 years old. This idea of staying up late, trying to do that as much as you can. I think the sleep underpins quite a lot of the issues that the girls in the sixth form have in terms of their mental health and well-being, etc. And getting into good habits is difficult and it's challenging, but certainly valuing sleep, I think, is really, really important. And that's a great book, and I certainly recommend it to any of you. It made me really assess my own sleeping patterns and actually significantly change them as well. Can I have the next slide, please? But I know it's difficult because on the left is my teenage life. Television going off at 11 o'clock. When Channel 4 came along, it was like, opened up Pandora's box. And on the right is the life of our students. And we know that there's conflict there from our own experience into what the girls have. So please, please, please do try and encourage them to get that sleep. Sleep helps with memories, it helps with eating, it helps with anxiety, all sorts of issues that come from that. And I do think that sleep underpins a lot of the issues. There's nothing worse for us as a teacher sitting there and teaching classes that are just yawning, because we know they're not really engaging and falling behind. So please do have a focus on that. I think it's very, very important. And then next slide, please. Certainly we don't want to see the girls compensating with huge amounts of caffeine, and we see that as well. Not at our school, but I did once drive through Kingston on the way to work to see a boy going to a local school with a bag of Walker's Crisps in one hand and a Red Bull in the other. He was about 14 at 8 o'clock in the morning, thinking he will be a nightmare to teach all the way through the day. So again, it's really important that the students are looking after themselves over the next couple of years. Okay, next slide, please. So we have a dress code in the sixth form, and I'll certainly ask for your help with that as well, and support, making sure that your daughters leave school correctly dressed. The dress code has come out. We know that students will always push that and try and get away with what they can, and we will obviously pick that up as and when we can. But we can't have smart staff, smart younger students, and then a sixth form group that don't lead by example. So we do expect the students to come into school properly dressed for school, and the dress code has come out for that. Okay, I'm going to introduce a few important staff to you, and then I'm going to hand over to Mr. Johnston. Okay, next slide, please. So if you do have any concerns about any learning enrichment issues that you think your daughter may have, then Miss Davies is our specific link learning enrichment member of staff. She's based in the sixth form once a week. We intentionally have a member of the learning enrichment department in the sixth form once a week, available directly to the girls, but she's also directly available via email, etc. If you do have any concerns, you're very welcome to contact Miss Davies directly or through your daughter's form tutor as well. So please bear that in mind. If you've got any inklings, anything niggling or worrying you, then please do get in contact with Miss Davies. We will screen the girls over the next couple of weeks just to check if there's any sort of signs that have been missed, because the issue often for learning support issues is very bright students learn to cope and learn to cover that up. That's not uncommon at all, and that's a massive credit to them for doing that. But we will screen as well. But if you've got any inklings or any concerns, then please do contact Miss Davies directly. Next slide, please, John. Now we have two academic mentors. Both have had very interesting journeys into the roles they do. We've got Mrs. Rosser, who used to be head of geography, so she has a really interesting academic interest in school life. And she's also got a really great pastoral side, looking after the students as well. And we have Mr. White. Now, Mr. White's got an interesting background as well, because he worked for IBM for a number of years, running their apprenticeship program. So if your daughters are interested at all in apprenticeships, he's a really good person to speak to. Now, they share a role in the study area. They're present all the time. and they're there. I have been asked about art and private study, and absolutely the girls can work in art as a private study. That can be done as well. But if you've got any concerns about organisation, or if your daughter needs any help with getting organised or communicating with teachers, then Jan and John are great at doing that and being real advocates for the girls, and they get to know them extremely well. Some of your daughters have had Mr. White in year 11 as well, already providing that support. Okay, next slide, please. So we've also got Mr. Sanders as well, who's our sixth form leadership coach. So if you have any concerns about your daughter's sort of self-confidence or anything like that, he's really good. He spends time coaching the girls, trying to get them to see how good they are, because we often see the girls as being brilliant, but they don't see themselves in that way. And Mr. Sanders is fantastic at doing that. And then the next slide is Mr. McDermott, who refuses to change his MIS picture. He's about 10 years old and he looks a lot younger. Obviously, if you want to contact Mr. McDermott about anything to do with careers, then please do contact him directly as well. I would again suggest you set up careers conversations early. They're really, really helpful, and I think that direction certainly helps. Next couple of slides, we'll go quite quickly. There are lots and lots of leadership opportunities in the sixth form, talking about these skills for future careers, and we will drip feed those through to the girls over the next few weeks. Next slide, please. I'm going to get some pace on. So my last slide really is signs that things are going well. If your daughters start to go, oh, I really want to do that, a bit of enthusiasm, I want to do that co-curricular, that's a really good sign. So please look out for that. And if you've got concerns your daughter's not doing something in co-curricular, doing something like a mentoring or additional art class or whatever, then please do contact your daughter's tutor, and they will look at that and try and get that involved in that engagement. Good timekeeping. If I'm honest, I once about 4 years ago, I looked at the A-level grades versus the timekeeping and late of a student, and you won't be surprised. There's a very good correlation. It's not perfect, but there's a good correlation, being a scientist, between the number of times a student's late and their A-level grades. It's quite simple. They need to remove that chaos and be in school on time. It's really, really important. A student who wants to come to school even when they're feeling a little bit ill. Now, I've left this in from last year because obviously I've put the COVID caveat in there. As long as they test negative, that's fine. They like talking about their subjects. They're working in the evening, but they're keeping balance. They're not doing too much. We don't want students just working every hour that God sends. They need to keep those hobbies and activities up that they enjoy. They must nourish their soul as much as their academic sort of interests. They never say I have no work to do, because there's always stuff to review, and that they come in and they're involved in things like sports days. Okay, I'm going to answer a few questions. I'm going to hand over. If students are doing art, that's fine, so we can do that one. We help them with goal setting. Absolutely, the tutors will be talking to them about that, but careers is a good area to do that. Yeah, we'll share the video for this rather than the slides. What is learning enrichment top up? So learning enrichment is what used to be called learning support. It looks after students who have English language as a second language, English as additional language, or they have a student who has maybe dyslexia or any of the sort of learning blocks that some students have, and they will help and support those students. Will we reinforce a good health message at school? Absolutely. We are in partnership. My son is with me more hours than he is in school, but he listens to his teachers more than he listens to me. So it's getting that sort of double team in there, and also modelling it as well. It's not very helpful for me to say to my son, go to bed, and then me sit up to 3 in the morning. So we are all of this together. And as teachers, if I'm sitting there munching crisps all day in my office and then talk about healthy eating, that's not helpful either. So it is about double teaming that with the students. That's fine. Someone's lost the sound, but they've got that back. Can I year 11 daughters access Mr. Sanders? He is year 12. There are different mentors in year 11. We have to make sure that he's available at different year groups, but certainly as a one-off, if they want to have a conversation, they can, but they can also tap into the year 11 mentors as well. Okay, so John, I'm going to hand over to Connor. You've got a bit of time. The football's on at 7:45. Remember, Connor, I know you're Irish and you won't care about the England game, but go quick. You're on mute.
Am I still on mute?
You're on now, you're on.
Oh, thank you. All right, I'll try and make it as brief as I can, I suppose. Good evening, everybody. My name is Connor Johnson. I am the Assistant Director of Sixth Form and the Head of Year 12. I would like to build a little bit on what Mr. Owen has been talking about tonight, and more specifically, I'd like to talk about the transition from Year 11 into Year 12. The particular areas I will be looking at will be the pastoral and the academic side of the sixth form. So I suppose if I had a mantra for the sixth form, it would have to be no surprises. I think as you embark on this new journey, as you make this new transition, it's really, really important that we have this open, honest dialogue between not just the students and the school, but also to include the parents, so that we have this triangulation effect between the student, school and parents. And that's what I'm going to be focusing on a little bit tonight. I'm going to start off with the pastoral. If I could have the next slide, please, John. So you might be familiar with our Charter for Wellbeing lower down in the school, where we've discussed about learning habits and how to build on strengths and how to sort of create this sort of whole well-rounded individual. And again, when it comes to supporting your daughter as they embark on their sixth form journey and as they make that transition in as well, we also believe in having a well-rounded approach to communication and opening up those challenges of communication for you and your daughter. John, if we could have the next slide, please. So in terms of the pastoral support available here in Year 12, there's a number of different avenues you can go down, and I'm going to talk through each of these now individually. As Mr. Owen already previously said, the first point of contact will be your daughter's form tutor. I will go a little bit into a little bit more detail in a few minutes about that, but certainly if there's ever any issues, if you're ever unsure about something, if you need to talk to someone and you don't know who, the best person to contact would be your daughter's form tutor. After that, you also have myself as the head of year and of course Mr. Rowan as the director of sixth form. As previously mentioned, we have an open door policy here. Our offices are right inside reception at sixth form, and we often encourage the girls that if they have any issues, any difficulties, if they want some additional support, or even just for a little chat, just to please call in. We're more than happy to speak to them at any time. Looking at the wider sixth form team, and again, just to reiterate some of what Mr. Owen has said, we do have the learning or the academic mentors based up in the sixth form study area. Again, they could be particularly useful in this journey and this transition, particularly as students embark on these new subjects. They might not necessarily have the best study skills, and that's where Jan and Nicola can come in and really help hone those skills and really support the students. Furthermore, we might find that sometimes well-being issues can arise if students might lack a certain direction. And again, we have found in the past that actually by involving the careers team, by sitting down, looking at those different pathways, we often find that by giving students a sense of direction, that can really, really help hone their study skills and of course, improve mental well-being, and of course, by extension, then also can help with the academic side of things. And of course, we also have our school nurse and our school counsellor. Students are free to self-refer, but of course, if they don't feel comfortable with that, they can always speak to their form tutor, myself, Mr. Rowan, and we're more than happy to set up a meeting for them. So, John, if I could have the next slide, please. So, in normal times, if we were meeting in person, we would give you the opportunity to meet with your daughter's form tutors in person. Unfortunately, we don't have that opportunity tonight, but I was speaking with the form tutors and they're really, really keen to speak with you and to open up those channels of communication. So each of your daughter's form tutor will be contacting you over the next couple of weeks, either via a phone call or by an email, again, just to develop those communications, just to put sort of a face to the name and so forth, and also just if you have any queries moving forward, just so you know who you can get in contact with. I want to develop the role and what the form tutors actually do and speak a little bit more about why they're so important, why they're so integral to the pastoral element and indeed the academic side of things as well. As mentioned, they are the first point of contact. They will be meeting your daughters every day for registration. And as a result of this, they're usually the first to notice that if there's usually any bumps in the road or if there's any issues. And again, during tutor time, they will also have the opportunity for those one-to-one conversations. And again, that could be really, really useful for any kind of issues or difficulties or any support they might need as well. Furthermore, as Mr. Owen has already mentioned, we have tried to align the form groups. We tried to group them via academic subjects, and we've also tried to link them with the form tutors and their expertise. This is particularly useful for the end of this year and again early in year 13 when we start to write UCAS applications, and of course when the form tutors start to write references for your daughter as they apply for university. Next slide, please, John. So in terms of the academic side of things, we have 4 main communication points throughout the year. You will receive reports home in form of what's known as a progress review. 3 of which are based on assessment periods that are done in the class or else during assessment weeks. So these main progress reviews that you get, the ones based on assessment, you'll get in November, March and June. The November and June progress reports will be followed up by a parents' evening. And again, this is a really good chance for you to get to know your daughter's subject teachers. And again, will also be a really good period to get to know them and talk about specific issues or success stories that might have occurred as well. Particularly the November parents' evening is particularly useful. Again, linking into that transition into year 12. In year 13, then we will have 3 progress reports with the mock examinations in January, and of course, which will be followed up by parents' evening afterwards in late January, early February. I should mention that if it's a case that if you are at any stage ever worried about progress or even just want to have a chat about how to do it, please do get in contact with us. We're more than happy to have a chat about that. John, can the next slide, please? I'm not going to go into too much detail about this, but I've just put together a few key dates so you know when to expect progress reports and when those kind of pinch points throughout the year are in terms of the academic communication. I understand that this email or this PowerPoint will be sent out later on today, so you'll be able to go through that. But just really to highlight in this slide, the main ones this side of Christmas, of course, are the November assessments. And the next slide, please, John. After which the June assessments, of course, the end of year exams, which will be followed by parents' evening. The next slide, please, John. So before I talk a little bit about progress reports and what they entail and what they look like, I just wanted to briefly talk to you about what we understand here about learning and progress. For some people, they consider learning and progress to be a linear trajectory whereby we expect to see certain results at a certain time and always on an upward trend. Sometimes that is not the case. Quite often there can be ups and there can be downs, and that's very important that we understand that, especially when we're speaking to the students about progress and how they're doing. One of the best descriptions I've ever heard of learning and progress is to describe learning and progress as akin to watching a incoming tide. If you sit on the beach and you watch a tide come in, if you only look at it for a couple of minutes, it doesn't look like it's making much progress. But if you come back in a couple of hours, you can clearly see that huge progress has been made and huge gains. And it's important that we view the learning throughout the year in a similar fashion. So at any one time, we don't just look at it in isolation. We consider the holistic, we take a holistic approach and we look at all of the variable factors when we're deciding and trying to evaluate the learning and progress that's taking place. If I can have the next slide, please, John. So how do you know what level your daughter's working at? With every progress report you get home, there will be one column titled On Target 4 Grades. If I could have the next slide, please, John. So typically, this is what a progress report would look like, outlining the student's attendance, attitude to learning, and meeting deadlines per subject. And that 4th column is titled the On Target 4 Grade. Effectively, this is the holistic view of the teacher, taking into account all of the available data, class assessments, so forth, of where they expect to see your daughter at the end of the year 13 cycle. In other words, what they think your daughter will get at for their A levels. And as you can see in year 12, it's a shaded grade. So again, it's A*/A or A/B, etc. And effectively, what we'd like to see with this, they are variable, they can go up, they can go down. Ideally, we like to see them go up. But again, it's just a clear sort of holistic view of how where we see your daughter will be at the end of her academic cycle. The final column then illustrates the test results, and this can be really useful as a benchmark to how your daughter is performing at this exact moment in time. So for instance, if we look at this particular student, we look at subject B, we can see that their On Target 4 grade is at an A*/A, and yet their test results at an A in one paper and an A* in the other. Clear indication that this student is, quite successful in this particular and is in line of where we expect him to be at the end of the year 13. Subject C, however, On Target 4 grade is an A/B, but the test results show that she received a C grade in this particular subject. And again, that discrepancy, maybe it warrants just a little conversation with the tutor first, the subject teacher, or perhaps even if you want to get in contact with us, we can discuss it a bit more if there's perhaps support you feel might be needed as well. So I think just my final slide here, I guess the main takeaway for tonight is that no surprises. We're really keen to start early dialogue and to maintain that dialogue right the way through your daughter's journey throughout the sixth form. And just on a final note, I'm really looking forward to meeting them all tomorrow and working them into the sixth form. Thank you.